Hi, my name's Tom and welcome to the first episode in my new dedicated series on the fourths tuning, or EADGCF tuning. You might have already seen the episode of my weekly series that I dedicated to explaining this tuning, all the advantages and disadvantages. I'm not going to go over all of those again here. I'd suggest you go and watch that if you're not familiar with that material or the tuning itself. I think I cover basically explaining what the tuning is in that, and then you can pop back here and we'll continue with the lesson. Now, I mentioned in that video early on that I just started adopting it. It was only sort of a week or so after I'd been playing with it, and I mentioned a few of the things when I was talking about disadvantages that you might have trouble with in this tuning. I mentioned open chords. I mentioned big 6-string bar chords or large bar chords. And they're the main two outliers. Now, with this series, there's not a lot of tutorial material out there focused on this tuning, so I want to create a dedicated series for that. The first few episodes in this series are going to be dedicated to the things that I mentioned in the disadvantages section and how to get around them, and also the things that we sort of rely on as guitar players in our muscle memory and things that we learn early on that we don't ever unlearn. So the first few videos are going to be on open chords and bar chords. Then I'm going to do a couple of videos on the pentatonic shapes, because obviously most guitar players rely on those, and obviously the idea of them changing can seem quite daunting. So I'm going to go over those in a separate video. But in this video, we're going to be talking about open chords. Now, I mentioned in that introduction video that open chords are one of the things that I think the words I used was go out of the window when you stick in this tuning. Now, initially I thought that to be the case, but that's not actually true. What I'm going to do is talk you through the 5 main open chords in standard tuning, the C, A, G, E, D chords, from the caged system, and explain how you can play them in fourths tuning. Some of them translate easily, some of them don't, but also how new chord opportunities open up in this tuning. So starting off, we've got the C chord, which normally you would finger like this. So 3rd fret on the A string, 2nd fret on the D, and 1st fret on the B string, and you'd strum all 5 strings from the A down. Now, I won't do that in this tuning because that sounds pretty horrible. But what we are going to do, if you think logically about this, every time you've got a shape, a lick, a scale fragment in which you would be using the top 2 strings in standard tuning, all you need to do is move that down 1 fret, and that's down in pitch. So, for example, in this case, we need to move the B string note down 1 fret, which would go to an open string, so we take that finger off. Now, the problem here lies with what would have been the E string, which is now our F string. We can't actually move that down 1 fret because it was open anyway. So what we'd be left with there is a C major with a 4th on top. So what we can do is actually play the 3rd fret on the A and the 3rd fret on the D and play a C suspended 4th open, which sounds very nice, but that's not what we're going for. We're looking for a C major sound. Now, what I do, and this might sound a little awkward to you, but once you get used to it, it's actually fairly comfortable. Much the same way as when I'm playing or was playing a C in the original tuning. I know that's horrible. I hit all 6 strings and just muted the ones I didn't want, so I muted the low E string. That's exactly what we're going to do in this sense, but we're going to mute the high F string in this case. What we could do is play the 2nd fret, which would give us a duplicate of that G note, but that is actually quite awkward, so I wouldn't subject you to that. So what I've been doing when I play C major is I've been playing similar to how I would have done the G, 3rd fret on the A, 2nd fret on the D, open G, open C string, and then I use my little finger to touch the string at the 3rd fret. I can use my ring finger as well, like this, so it doesn't sound out. Now that might sound a little awkward, but once you get used to it, it is very comfortable. You just have to get used to regulating the pressure on your fingers. So anyway, that's C covered. What we're going to do is we're going to go through all the chords, all the major chords, and then we're going to talk about the minor versions of the open chords and then the dominant ones. So that's the first one, C. That's how I play it in this tuning. We can add that extra note on the E string as well, the 3rd fret, to give us an extra 5th in the bass, which gives it a bit more oomph. The next chord we've got is the A, and again, we take the original shape like this and move it all down 1 fret. So the B string note, which would have been on the 2nd fret, it moves down to the 1st. And the same problem with the top string, we can't move that down. So what we do in this sense is mute that top string. So it still sounds as an open chord. What we can do for the A chord is to get a big, and I'll talk about this again when we hit the G in a minute, is to get a big A5 chord, which is basically a power chord, which is where you have the root in the 5th, but we stack it even bigger. So we've got the open A, 2nd fret on the D, 2nd fret on the G, which will be our E, which would be the 5th, and the A note, again the root, and then we repeat those up an octave by playing the 4th fret on the C and 4th fret on the F. So that gives us a really big open A5 sound, which we can use instead of we can use it in place of a dominant, minor or major. But this is how I play the straight major. It's basically the shape we use for E major, move down 1 fret, but we mute this string. That's how we make it dominant, but I'll come back to that later. So we've got our C, our A, and then we've got our G. Now this is the tricky one that I actually find really easy. I know this sounds peculiar. Normally you would play the G like this. Now I always used to play the G flattening my little finger, and then I got used to playing it with both fingers down. Some people play it with the B string ringing open, which gives us that 3rd again, but I like to play the 3rd fret, which gives us that 5th. So the way I do this is I move this shape on the top 2 strings down and play this like a weird C. And again, I know this looks ridiculous and it might feel strange to start off with. So I'm playing the 3rd fret on the low E, my fingers naturally muting the A string, then we've got the D open, the G open, 2nd fret on the C, and 2nd fret on the F. And that's how I've always played my G. Even when I played it like this, I always muted that A string because I didn't like the sound of that 3rd. Even though it's technically a big G5, like I talked about the A, it's not got a sex, it's neither minor nor major. I always used it in place of a major chord. So that's how we get that sound, and that looks quite awkward, but if you think about it, if you remember when you first started playing, how awkward it was and how difficult it was to play like a C major chord or a G chord. And I've got beginners who start again and they're clasping at the guitar trying to grab these chords. I teach all beginners in standard tuning. I'm still not 100% comfortable suggesting this for complete beginners, though I am keen to give people the option when they're understand the theory enough. But I have students who come to me and they're struggling with these shapes and they feel totally unnatural and totally weird. To us, who may have been playing a while, and certainly to me, they feel natural, and you sort of feel scared that you're going to lose these shapes. But if you think about it, all you need to do is relearn a couple. Like this G already feels fine under my fingers. I was writing something the other day and it just comes naturally after you've practiced it a few times. So we've got our C, our A, our G, our E. Now this is a tricky one. This is one of the ones that becomes basically a bar chord. We could do the exact same thing that we're doing with the A, because again everything's symmetrical and repeats on string sets in this tuning, but we lose out on the top 2 strings. If your fingers are big enough, you could hit that 4th, but I've got ever so small hands, so I struggle with that. Incredibly small hands, look at that, ridiculous. So what I do is I play this as a bar chord. So I'm playing the open E, 2nd fret on the A, 2nd fret on the D, 4th on the G, 4th on the C, 3rd on the F. Like that. So if I'm going from A, I would move to the E like that. Again, you would be used to playing an E just straight, strumming it, and that's something that you will have lost in this tuning. Unfortunately, that's one of those chords that just has to be sacrificed, but as you'll see in a minute, that transfers elsewhere. So this is how we play our E. So that's C, A, G, E, and then our D chord is probably the easiest. It's the only one that doesn't basically need any transferring. So this is where we would have been, and we just move these top two strings down to here, and we can add that A string, which I always do to give it that fifth in the bass, and even make it a full six string root by adding the F sharp, which is the third in the bass. So that's our fattest chord basically. So there are ways to play all the basic open chords like that. Now we've talked about the major. The minor in this case, in the C case, would be just moving that second fret down. The minor in the A case would be moving the first fret down. The minor in the G case, since we're neither major nor minor, will be exactly the same. The E case is a case of moving that top note from the third to the second in that bar, and the D case we just lift off our first finger from the top F string. Now going back to the start again, the dominant 7 sound in this one can be quite difficult. We've got a C here and we want to hit this note, so we're basically playing exactly what we were playing, but hitting the third fret on the G as well. The A, we're playing the major shape, taking off the second fret of the G. The G, again, we play exactly the same. That can be covered in the bar chord section, which will be next week. That's how I will play a G7. So another open chord for there. E, we lift off our little finger on that bar chord there, and the D, we lift off our the second fret from the C string to give us the D7 there. So they're the basic 5 open chords that you play in standard tuning: the C, A, G, E, D. There are others, but they're the main ones. And how you can actually minorize or dominize all of them in this tuning, which you actually can't in standard tuning. So there are ways to play these chords. Also, I said we sacrificed our E chord, which is true. We don't get that big open E chord. I mean, our lowest note's E, you would expect to be able to do that, but we do get a big open F now. If we drop the root, we can play our E shape just up 1 fret, which is our that's our big F chord. So on top of the F, we've got our B flat open chord. And I'm using open chord lightly. I mean, only one of the strings is open, but we're playing this our new major shape on the exact same way that we were playing the F, just moving it down 1 string. So there are new ways to play these chords. Now, on top of the standard open chords, before we finish, I'm just going to talk a little bit about what I call the rush chords, which is a terrible name for them, but in my eyes it's the greatest name in the world, because it's what rush. It's 2112 poster, you can't see it. I've got a few emails asking me if it's a satanic symbol. It might be, but it's on the cover of 2112. Rush, one of my favourite bands. They use a lot of ringy open strings in their chords, and I was a bit perturbed about moving to this tuning because I love this chord, which I refer to as the rush chord, and you would normally play this by playing 2nd fret on the low E, 4th fret on the A, 4th on the D, and 3rd fret on the G with the other 2 strings ringing. But obviously because of the tuning we can just move that up. So you can still play all your Alex Lifeson riffs that use this chord, though you will be a tone, semitone higher than the record. And we can move this around, which gives us all the... So, to recap, it is possible to play open chords in this tuning. In fact, apart from a few little workarounds we have to do, it's pretty easy to play open chords in this tuning. In some circumstances we've got a few more options, in some we've got less, but I basically wanted to make this video for people interested in this tuning that were maybe put off by the potential limitations, because initially I thought that open chords would be impossible. That was obviously incorrect. So I hope this video has been useful. Please subscribe for more videos, because I've got a regular set of videos for this series planned, and if you are interested in this tuning, stay tuned, because hopefully the next few videos will get you out of your comfort zone, or at least cover the stuff that you've committed to muscle memory already, and show you how easy it is or can be to move into this new tuning. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you soon.